talking about financial well-being and college student loans.
So just going over a quick agenda, we're going to start with some statistics, go into the introduction, the lit review, both of our hypotheses, our survey idea, the different variables that we had, the survey plan, the data at the end, and then ending it with the results and implications. So to start, here are some statistics. So 75% of college students, or of colleges failed to meet affordability tests. And what these affordability tests showed, it depended on if the college students could afford college. So for example, if they could afford tuition, room and board, anything of that nature. Over 1/4 of people were unable to participate in common lifestyle purchases because of student debt. So some of these common lifestyle purchases include buying a house, renting an apartment, or anything of that nature, or like if college students want to go on a hobby or something like that. And then only 1 in 10 college students have access to one or more personal finance courses during their tenure at college.
Alright, so moving into our introduction, financial well-being varies per person. Everyone has different amounts of income, and some people don't work through the academic year, so that also varies. And everyone budgets and manages expenses differently, and some people have a harder time saving money and putting it aside as well. A successful financial well-being would be creating and sticking to a budget, which helps manage these expenses, and also helps minimize these overspending habits as well. So based on the results, we're going to be going over the relationship between financial well-being and student loans. Basically, how much do student loans help college students, as well as do they really help financial well-being or do they not?
With tuition rates going up, more and more college students have found that they want to increase their financial well-being. A study of 30,000 college students from 440 schools across the country found that 53% of students were ready for these type of decisions. This is probably due to most of them being new to these type of things, because previously they had experience with a little bit of paying taxes, making money from jobs, but not so much with investing and paying for school and things like that, managing schedules. And then not having a good understanding of your financial well-being can obviously have negative impacts. 15 states so far have made it mandatory for students to take a 1-semester class of a financial literacy course, but so far only 8 states have actually implemented it.
As I'm sure many of you know, student loans can affect students both financially and mentally. 4 in 10 Americans are unable to cover emergency expenses using cash. Student loans are known to increase financial hardship, giving less leeway to long-term and short-term savings. Roughly 1 in 5 Americans in the United States have student loan debt. A study done by the Morning Consult examined 500 students ages 18 to 39 and had found that over 90% had reported financial stress connected to student loans. About half of these respondents were unable to put money aside for retirement, and 86% had reported that they were cutting down on their expenses. Over 60% had reported not paying their student loans at all during the period of COVID. The U.S. debt right now is around 1.57 trillion, which is the 3rd largest form of consumer debt. Many of these people who had to take out loans too are also facing the difficulties of not being in their desired career fields. They're also having to take up second jobs, or even over 1/4 of people with student loan debts are unable to participate in the common lifestyle. 31% had reported not being able to have the ability to purchase a home, and 29% had reported not being able to buy a vehicle, and 35% had reported this affecting their ability to take a vacation.
So for our research, we conducted 2 hypotheses. The first one stating that if someone needs a student loan, then their financial well-being will be impacted. And this is because taking out a student loan has both short-term and long-term effects on the student. Some of these short-term effects can include immediate changes to their disposable income while they're in college, and some of the long-term effects can be difficulty generating an income once graduating, which can postpone their ability to buy a house, buy a car, or even have children. So our second hypothesis states that if the amount of student loan needed is greater, then their financial well-being will be more impacted. So it's showing that it has an inverse relationship the more student loan, the worse your financial well-being will be. And this is because with larger student loans comes larger monthly payments, graduating in a larger amount of debt. So this puts more stress on the student and their financial situation.
So moving on to our survey idea, or when we originally developed that, we were thinking our dependent variable would be financial well-being. And then for our first independent variable, we wanted to know if college students have a student loan. And for our second independent variable, we're gonna know the amount of the student loan. This survey took roughly 5 minutes, and it took us 2 weeks to get our data back.
So as Tyler mentioned, our dependent variable is financial well-being, and that would be measured with college students and student loans. And the scales that we decided to use were the Likert scale for 90% of our questions, as well as adding a slider scale and a staple scale. The questions that we asked were about if you're concerned the money that you have right now won't last, along those lines, as well as having them rate their overall financial well-being 1 through 10, and also giving a definition of what it is just in case they were unsure. And for our question results, it would help us show if student loans impacted a college student's overall financial well-being.
And then moving on to our independent variables, we broke them down into 2 different sections. We asked if college students currently have student loans, and how much are they in debt with student loans. So for the first one, do you have student loans? This was just a simple yes or no question that the users were taking. It acted like as an icebreaking question, and then it identified if the users were debt-free or not. And then for how much in student loans, this was a multiple choice question, and it had different range of amounts that users could choose from depending on what their major was and how much debt they were in. And then it obviously highlights the amount of debt that they have.
And then for our survey plan, we had a series of multiple choice questions, which looked at demographic questions and as well as if they have student loans or not. And we utilized the Likert scales, our slider scale. And then this dealt with, issues about, money/income, and then like a person's level of financial well-being, how they feel about that.
So for our results, for our descriptive data, we had a total of 165 responses, but we were only able to use 135 of them because of incompletion. The majority of the participants were female, being about 57.8%, and 94% of them were white or Caucasian. And then for our age range, the majority of the students who took the survey were between 21 and 24, which made most of them seniors in school, and the next highest being juniors.
And then our t-test found that students with a student loan had much lower financial well-being as compared to students that don't have student loans. And that actually confirmed our first hypothesis, which states that if a student needs a student loan, that their financial well-being will be affected, and it was affected in a negative way.
So looking at our regression test, so first off, what is a simple regression test? It's basically a way for us to measure the relationship of one variable to another. And we had to use the regression test for our hypothesis number 2, which, just to refresh, if the amount of student loan needed is greater, then their financial well-being will be more impacted. And looking at our significance levels over here, we could tell it's less than 5%, so that is valid. As well as looking at our coefficients, our dependent variable, which is our constant, is 6.390. Comparing it to our independent variable, negative 0.233, which showed, in summary, students' financial well-being decreased 0.233 for each level of higher student loan debt they're in.
So for our survey results, hypothesis 1 confirmed by the t-test showing someone needing a student loan will have their financial well-being impacted. Hypothesis 2 is confirmed by the regression test showing a fair amount of student loan leads to their financial well-being being impacted much more highly.
And then lastly, the implications. So students with a higher level of student loan debt need more support for their financial well-being. So what Northern should do is they should implement more financial education to be provided within the high school students and early college students. So they can do this by having any sort of budgeting or financing within the high school, so they can understand how to go into college much more deeply. And then the last point, I feel like it's the most important point, regarding our survey, it's to educate students about income-based repayment plans before graduation to reduce financial stress. So what these income-based repayment plans are, is it bases monthly student loan payments after you graduate, depending on how much you make after college. So it's not only a good thing for college graduates to have some sort of ease when they're graduating, but it also can help Northern implement and want more students to go to college and knowing how to budget their finances. And that's our presentation.